The memes online would certainly suggest Marco Rubio is becoming a thing. Joining me now, former Republican Congressman Charlie Dent from Pennsylvania and Philip Bump, senior data editor and columnist for Hearst. Philip, Rubio's video has already gotten about 4 million views. It includes those sweeping music entrees and hero shots of Rubio spliced together with images of Ronald Reagan. Does this tell you that the 2028 race is essentially on, as those conservative podcasters alluded to?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been on for a while, sort of quietly. I think what's fascinating about this video is that now it's overt, right? There's no question what Rubio is doing here. He's seizing on the opportunity. But what does that actually tell us, right? It doesn't tell us a whole lot about who's going to win in 2028. I mean, we know, in 2014, May 2014, we would not be talking about Donald Trump being the 2016 nominee. We'd be talking about Jeb Bush. What this tells us, though, is that Republicans are now overtly planning for the post-Trump world. And I'm very curious to see how Trump's going to respond to that as this moves forward. There's certainly some palace intrigue here as well, but we know that there's a coming tension on the right about what happens once Donald Trump is out of office. This is Marco Rubio planting a flag at a time when Donald Trump is actually pretty weakened politically.
Congressman, the Washington Post also points out that billionaire Elon Musk, who in the past has been pretty critical of Rubio and has been more enthusiastic about Vice President J.D. Vance, actually promoted that clip. And we heard this from ex-Republican Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Listen.
Marco Rubio, that guy can do anything. The memes are right to a press conference. But when they asked him the question, he answers it from the soul of America. I think really captures it.
Does Rubio come off as more authentic than Vance? What's the magic sauce here?
Well, I think Rubio did himself a great service with that speech. It was very aspirational, forward-looking, in many ways very uplifting and unifying. And you contrast that with J.D. Vance, who I think is more like Trump in the sense that they speak more to grievance. So I think that was really helpful to Rubio. But remember, this is a long way off, 2028. And also remember that Donald Trump's numbers are really bad. They're in the 30s right now as approval ratings, and maybe they improve a little bit before the 2028 election, but I can't imagine they're going to improve that much. And they could. You don't want to set yourself up as running for Donald Trump's third term when he's this unpopular, whether you're J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio. That said, I think Marco Rubio is in many ways a much more appealing candidate than J.D. Vance. Just given how he likes to talk to Republicans, more like me, frankly, than the MAGA base. Maybe the MAGA base is more excited about Vance, but Rubio did himself a service with that speech.
So to your point, though, is Rubio inextricably tied to some of the more unpopular policies, to the economic situation, to the war in Iran? Can he surmount that by the time we get to 2028? I know it's a long way off.
Yeah. It's a bigger problem, I think, for J.D. Vance. Because Marco Rubio was never seen as a non-interventionist. J.D. Vance was, and now he's having to defend this intervention in Iran. And frankly, he's also been sent there to help negotiate, and that fell apart. So in many ways, I think, Rubio will have to answer for Iran, but I think he's more comfortable speaking to the issue, given his worldview and how he's positioned himself over many years. For Vance, I think this is a much more difficult issue.
Philip, as you alluded to earlier, we know President Trump loves a rivalry. He's a big fan of the WWE, but he also doesn't really like being outshined himself. So how do you think he's going to view all of this Marco-mentum?
Yeah, I think it's going to increasingly grate. Not necessarily just the Marco aspect, but the fact that Republicans are going to be consistently talking about 2028 and doing so more as the election nears. I think after the midterms, we're going to see a sudden rush of people trying to figure out how they can build space for themselves, in this new era of when Trump is of fading importance. I'm skeptical that anyone who's close to Trump is really going to be able to step out from under his shadow. That may be beneficial in the primaries in 2028. I think it's going to be a net liability in the general. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this. I think Rubio and Vance, yes, there are gradations between them, but both of them are Trump guys, right? And it is, Rubio is a better politician. Rubio knows how to walk the walk better. I think he has more general election appeal, but he is associated with Donald Trump's presidency, and I think that's going to be a net negative, regardless of whatever improvement may occur between now and then.
So, Congressman, I'm curious your thoughts here. Rubio's editing team made sure to include shots of the president. It looked pretty, calculated. in this one. But we also know that Kristi Noem was fired in part after those questions over what we're seeing on our screens here, that produced ad, $200 million in a media campaign that showed her on a horseback at Mount Rushmore. So any chance that this surge in popularity for Marco Rubio, that glossy new, ad, or well, it's not an ad, a glossy new video, I should say, could actually backfire?
It's possible. But I think Marco Rubio's relationship with the president is much stronger and deeper than Kristi Noem's. I think the president has a lot of confidence and trust in Rubio, and that will help him. But just to speak to Phil's point, though, I am concerned, though, for Republicans that going forward, the party seems to be diminishing. And, if you think of what happened in 2016, when Hillary Clinton seemed to be running for Obama's third term in what was a change election year, I have a feeling that 2028 is going to be seen as a change election year, with Trump being very unpopular. So while right now we're talking about Vance and Rubio, there might be other Republicans, maybe a governor 100%. Who has a little bit more distance from Donald Trump, that, when voters are going to be maybe looking for something different than Trump, they might want to look elsewhere beyond these two candidates. So keep that in mind. Again, we're a long way off.